Next up, I'd like to welcome James Davies from the University for the Creative Arts, and James is going to tell us all about their digital program improvement and how HCI and a cyber strategy together can help facilitate and underpin that.
So I'm here today to give you an overview of our transformation programme. We have been a university that's traditionally been very stale and static in terms of our infrastructure provision, but before I make a start on the journey and the story that we've been through, I thought I'd tell you a little bit about the University for the Creative Arts. So we are a university that focuses on the creative elements of the industry. We focus on the arts and the business and the technology, combining all to focus on all areas of the creative industries. A few headlines: we are the #1 specialist for the creative arts 2018. We are the second largest provider in Europe for the creative arts, and that's a very big achievement for the university. And in addition to that, I'm very pleased to say that the university was awarded the most modern university of the year by the Times and the Financial Times recently in the last week or two. So it's a massive achievement for the university, its staff and its students. To give you the idea of the geography, which actually sets the challenge for us. We are a university spread across the southeast of England. We have a campus at Farnham, at Epsom, at Rochester and at Canterbury. We have a data centre in London. We also offer courses in the Royal School of Needlework, and we offer courses in Maidstone TV studios. So quite a geographical spread, quite a tough infrastructure to manage. As a university, we offer world-class degrees, and we focus in animation, creative business, fashion, fine art, games and technologies, and there's a list there that gives you an idea of the flavour of things that we do. So to set the scene and to paint the picture, this model here was the traditional infrastructure model that we had spread across 6 sites, a data centre, a limited DR facility, when we had 4 campuses. It's surprising actually, because when I inherited this 2 years ago, 2 members of staff were managing and supporting this across 6 sites, and it was a logistical nightmare and I think a daily firefighting challenge for absolutely everyone. So my first priority as the Director of IT was to come in, sit in front of my Board of Governors, get grilled over business continuity, look at this, scratch my head and go, oh, how am I going to solve this problem? And actually what we were faced with was inconsistent and poor performance, limited scalability, increasing costs. I couldn't afford to replace all 6 sites, 2 data centres. The affordability just wasn't there. The university's not big enough to make that type of capital investment in 1 year. This is actually what it looked like. So there are the 6 sites. We had data and systems spread across each site. We had infrastructure, what I would call the traditional server storage infrastructure, using Hyper-V across 6 sites, all connected into the Janet network. Appreciate it's probably quite small, but we've got resilient 1 gig connections into Janet and all of those sites. But again, a logistical nightmare for us to actually be able to manage. And with 2 people, it was becoming increasingly harder for them and stressful. Moving on, so we had to understand the challenge. When I sat in front of the Board of Directors, I gave them assurance that I would, in 2 years' time, come up with a plan and a strategy to resolve this. I think for us, understanding the business needs, and IT doesn't traditionally always understand the business needs. So we initiated a project. It was around the business needs of the university, and it took us a year to realise this. So we understood the business needs, the service, and our data limitations. We then engaged with stakeholders, academics and service owners. And by engaging, all of a sudden we realised that actually we understand the data limitations, we understand the service, we know who the owners are, And we realised very quickly, before I get on to an impact assessment and a gap analysis, that there was already a huge divide between what we were capable of delivering and what actually the university needed in the future. So we brought all that information together and we performed a business impact assessment, a gap analysis, to actually document where we were and how far we absolutely needed to travel. So, for me, I always hear this cloud-first strategy. I've been to lots of these conferences now. I hear lots of good people talking, and they're often saying to me, cloud-first is the way, this is the way we're going to go. Well, actually, no, that's not the way. I think it depends on the needs and the requirements of the university, its staff, and its students. Is Azure the right way to go? Is Amazon Web Services the right way to go? My project team, because they saw Azure as this bubble of hope, said, let's push everything to Azure. And it's like, no, back off from that idea. Let's just think about that before we run and do things we're going to regret later. In-house, outsourced. It's a big challenge. Can I cope with the challenge? Can my team, I've got 2 people, can they cope with the challenge? No, let's outsource it. That was a consideration at the time. And hybrid cloud, obviously this is a term that's quite prevalent in the infrastructure industry, in IT, private cloud, public cloud, hybrid. Where do we put it? Do we put it in the private cloud? Do we put it in the public cloud? Is this even a reality for the university? So ultimately, for me, help. I don't know what to do. We've got this great impact analysis. We know what the problem is, and we need to find a partner who's going to partner with us to actually understand the business, the university, and our data. And we partnered with Q Associates, and we worked with Q Associates, and we are continuing to work with Q Associates over a period of time to understand the output of phase 1 of this project. And we did quite a bit of work. We looked at the network assessment and its capability. Is our network up to scratch? Can the network cope with this new world of hybrid clouds? We looked at our data. Where is the data? How much of it's duplicated? Where is it? No one actually knows. So we had to do a whole assessment with Q Associates on where is our data? Is it duplicate? How much data do we have? And when we go off and do these great things with hyperconvergence, that the term is now at this point starting to take traction in my department, how much space do we need? What are the technical options? Were my projects team right? Do we just push everything to Azure? Or do we actually take it back? Do we do it all in-house? Are we very closed-minded? Or should we embrace the cloud? And what are the strategic options? So from my point of view, what we do today has to benefit me, the university staff and students, for the next 5 years, for the life of this project. Am I going to have the business continuity that I've got a lot of pressure from the board governors looking at me? Am I going to be able to have it scalable as the university grows? Can I grow with it? So my focus was business continuity and infrastructure scalability. Whatever we did had to cover those elements. And those were the key drivers throughout the entire project. So we did look at some options. We looked at, shall we continue to do the traditional infrastructure model? What does that look like? What does the cost look like? Should we then say, well, we'll continue doing what we do because, we like firefighting, we've got all this stuff and we like to do it in-house, but you know what, the projects team are telling me that Microsoft Azure is brilliant, let's go off down there. We looked at, let's do the traditional infrastructure model again, but build our own private cloud because we like holding everything ourselves. We like doing it ourselves with very limited staff. Do we look at completely outsourcing? Do we go to Rackspace? I did. I personally went to Rackspace. I sat in front of some team at Rackspace and said, this is my entire infrastructure. How much would it cost to give it all to you and make my life easy? I can focus on business value projects instead of worrying about my infrastructure. The cost was hideous. I wouldn't recommend it. Hybrid cloud is that term. We're coming back to that term again, which for me, at this point in this story and the journey of the project, my team are now really going, this is the right, we've looked at these options, this is the right thing. And so I've got the core of my team telling me, that's where we need to be. We need to be there. And at this point, this was the point where hyperconvergence started to get traction in the team of actually, we want to do hybrid cloud. Do we want to do it with all this traditional infrastructure? No. Is it scalable? No, it's not. My problem, my team's telling me they want to do all this great stuff, we need to throw everything in the bin, we need to start again. My issue is capital expenditure over operational expenditure. Being a small university, we necessarily haven't got the vast millions of pounds to invest in IT at any one time. So how do I transform 6 sites and 2 data centres, put hyperconvergence in, go hybrid cloud and actually make this possible? How do I guarantee my infrastructure team that in 5 years' time, the money is going to be there to do it all again? And I'm not going to do what I usually go and go, can you sweat the assets for 2 years because I need to save some money because we need to go and build a new building. So I think this is an interesting one because this here actually made us do it. And I went to the Board of Governors with all the costs and went, here's the costs. And I made a proposal to the Board of Governors, and this was in consultation with my team and Q Associates, to say, well, instead of CapExing the whole lot, why don't you OpEx it? Turn it into a lease. Who wants to own the servers? Who wants to own the storage? No one. 5 years' time, we're going to bin it. There's no point having it. You might as well lease it. 5 years' time, lease it again. And every 5 years, you have an opportunity to refresh, look at new technologies. So I went to the Vice-Chancellor, the Deputy Vice-Chancellor, with the proposal, and they're scratching their heads going, oh, I'm not sure we can increase our operational costs. I went to the Board of Governors, and I went with a proposal which is, if you allow me to do this, which will only cost you this a year, then I can save you £5 million over X amounts of years. That's a building. And as soon as that hit home, then that resonated with everyone to say, actually, what he's saying is true. They didn't really care about hyperconvergence. They just wanted the money. But I knew if I was to guarantee the money, my infrastructure team's dream of a hyperconverged infrastructure would become reality. So this is what we ended up with. We moved from Hyper-V to VMware. I spoke to a lot of my colleagues in the industry who said to me, you're crazy. That's a lot of money. You're Hyper-V, it's free. Yes, it's not free. You still have to pay Microsoft money. Yes, you pay VMware more. But I'll come on to why we went to VMware in a minute. We used vSphere, vSAN, and a little bit of NXX to create 2 data centers. We actually built our own private cloud. We also established Azure for our cloud-based systems and our authentication. I didn't want to be in a position where my cloud-based systems is completely reliant on my on-premise systems, and I know some of my colleagues in other universities are in that position. I want to be in a position where if that infrastructure is not there, this is going to work, and all my cloud-based systems talk to this, so that there is still a service to our staff and our students. So the whole thing around VMware and Hyper-V, and this is my opinion. It was my opinion and the opinion of my team and staff that VMware was what we call a feature-rich product. It was a mature product. We compared it to the version of Hyper-V that we had at the time. We also asked ourselves the questions, can Hyper-V do replication? Can Hyper-V do this? Can Hyper-V do that? Yes, but you have to bolt on other bits of technology to make it work. So all of a sudden you've got a multi-vendor piece of technology. And it's not really sleek, it's not nice. So we ended up with 2 data centers using vSphere, vSAN, and NSX. Geographically diverse, just in case bombs drop and we lose a data center and the UCA will still be here. That's a comforting thought. We established a new data center at Virtus, leveraging the JISC shared data centers services, and we retained our presence at University of London. So how did we do this? Ultimately, to break the project down, we did it in 3 stages. We kept our legacy systems running, and we deployed the new systems in parallel to the old systems. Now that was a challenge because as a university, I had all the skill and capability, and my team did, in Hyper-V. VMware, well, we don't know this. This is new. And this is where Q Associates come in, because we said to them, look, we want to do this change, but we need you to support us with this change and then support us for the next 2 years afterwards, whilst our teams go on all of the training, they get skilled up and they get very competent. And that was a deciding factor for me, that if we couldn't get that guarantee and if Q couldn't provide that service, that was a deal breaker. We couldn't do it. The risk to the university was too high. Thankfully, they were able to provide the services and help us. We then looked at converting our systems from Hyper-V into VMware, moving it from a legacy infrastructure into our data centers. If you think about all the other sites that sit around our 2 data centers, we then started to take those systems and services and move them into the center, move them into one place. And we looked at our data. We've started that journey of migrating our data into a centralized position as well. So this is what we ended up with. And I do apologize for the size. It's a little bit blurry. The images I got obviously weren't that great, but you can see that in our 2 data centers we have VMware, we have a hyper-converged infrastructure. We're in a position now where I want more space. I could go to Azure or the cloud, or I could just plug another box in, get more compute, get more memory, get more storage, scalability. And so I've got the capacity to expand and expand with the university as it grows on all of our sites. We've then put remote vSAN, vSphere offices on all of the campuses, running core basic services. Nothing that if we lost the campus, the staff and students from a server point of view, it wouldn't impact them in the slightest, because everything is run centrally from the data center. So a little bit more about the partnership that we've got with Q. And I always say to any new vendor that I work with that I think a partnership is very important, because there's lots of vendors out there. There's lots of people that tell you they can do something when actually they can't. And I've been in that position. I've had people work with me on various projects where we've had to march the vendors out of the door because they were about to hit the big red button that makes everything stop. So for a university, that's quite dangerous. But with Q Associates, we worked with them on the design and the conception. So we knew that when we come to deliver the projects that they knew and understood us and we knew and understood them. There has been some challenges along the way, but I'm going to be honest, all of the challenges have been overcome. And for me, a partnership is about trust. And they trust us and we trust them, and it puts us in a very good position for the future. So some of the things now we've done this journey, we've got this hyper-converged infrastructure, we've moved from Hyper-V to VMware, we've experienced the joys of that and the pain of that. Now we're looking at, well, what could the future look like? Some of the talks this morning with the AWS and VMware, wow, had I known that when I'd done this, I may have actually changed what I've done and actually maybe incorporated that as my 3rd data center to give me even more scalability. We're looking at 3rd line support with Q Associates. I've got a team, they're not now 2, they're now a team of 6, but they do a lot more. So it's still a very small team. And I want the team to start focusing on the value-added services for the university and not necessarily the mundane job of having to run the day-to-day infrastructure. For me as a university, internationally, we're expanding and we're growing. We're developing partnerships abroad. We're growing our business, which is fantastic. But for an IT director, how am I going to support this overnight? How am I going to support the 24-hour operation? It's a challenge. We're in discussions around, can you provide this service to us and actually be an extension of the IT team at UCA? And as I said, trusted supplier of the university with proven resolution for issues that have come up. So, we're all here today because ultimately the students are who we serve. They're our customers. And for me, being in a university, and a visual arts university, I could sit here and show you some things or tell you how great that this project has been, which enables our students to do these great things. But I thought I'd show you what those great things are. brings us to the end. Do we have any questions? No? Is everyone hungry for lunch? I know I am. I skipped breakfast this morning. No? Well, thank you very much.